Yo dogs, this is Isaac here, and welcome to the season finale of Isaac Reviews 2021. It's been a long year, full of cinematic gems and absolute garbage, but to conclude the reviews of 2021, we're going to be looking at something mediocre in the form of The Matrix Resurrections. Now, I watched the first 3 Matrixes in preparation for this new one, and I feel like the first 2 were the only ones that actually felt special. Resurrections existed, I guess. It had some amazing visuals, but it was really lacking in the script department. But now, 18 years later, we're finally ready to return to The Matrix either theatrically or from the comfort of our own homes via HBO Max. My family and I opted to watch it that way since it was more convenient, and now that I've seen it, honestly, for the grand finale for Isaac Reviews 2021, we didn't really seem to end on the highest note. I mean, yeah, the year could have ended off a whole lot worse, but I feel like I would have been fine calling it quits after No Way Home. So in some of my more recent reviews, I've started by talking about what I liked and then moving on to flaws. But since I love to subvert your expectations, like if my name is Ryan Johnson, I'll talk about the negatives first. And what better place to start when it comes to this movie's failings than with the script? Because boy, this movie is a jumbled mess. Now, the pacing could play into this since it's just all over the place, but the writing itself is so confusing that I'm mostly just confused by either what's happening or why something happened. I mean, I found some of the story choices to be unique and the callbacks to the first 3 movies being welcome, but overall, the writing left a lot to be desired. Also, the next criticism will contain spoilers, so click off the video if you don't want to hear them, but the villain, the analyst, is incredibly stupid. I mean, his performance from Neil Patrick Harris was pretty good and sells how charismatic yet intimidating he is, and yet his reveal comes straight out of left field with barely enough red herrings to clue us in that he's a villain. Wow. If I had a nickel for every time a live-action movie this year had a twist villain that hardly made any sense whatsoever, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Also, while the visual effects here are stunning, the cinematography looks like it was done by an orangutan with Parkinson's, with the large amount of unnecessary shaky cam similar to something like Man of Steel, and the editing is also pretty bad with way too many jump cuts and confusing choices for certain visual aspects. But aside from those major problems, The Matrix Resurrections, I almost said Revolutions for a second, but The Matrix Resurrections is at least competent and at least does some things right. For example, as previously mentioned, the visuals here are amazing, especially with the action scenes and environments. The film is well directed, even if one of the Wachowski sisters was absent for this. And the acting is pretty solid outside of Jada Pinkett Smith putting on some sort of weird accent that she didn't really need to put on. Oh, and the score is also really good. Probably not as good as Don Davis's music in the original 3 Matrixes, but the blending of synth and orchestra is good, and the score as a result is pretty solid. Well, once again, we've got another review from me that feels rather short simply due to the fact that there wasn't a whole lot for me to discuss. But in conclusion, when it comes to The Matrix Resurrections, even though the visuals, acting, musical score, and direction were all good, that can't really salvage the mess that is this movie's script, along with the uninteresting new characters, bafflingly dumb antagonist, and the feeling that not a whole lot of questions we may have had were answered in a cohesive way. It's a harmless watch if you're bored or if you're a fan of the Matrix movies, but I'd just stick with the first 2 since, as previously mentioned, they're the only ones that were actually good, at least to me. And even if I'd give this one a 6 out of 10, I'd still consider this the weakest of the Matrix films. Hopefully this marks as the end of the franchise, however, as I've seen time and time again how once a film franchise goes for far too long, it can really begin to overstay its welcome even if the first few movies were good, and as such it creates a product that only feels like it was made with profit in mind and nothing more, where all you can really do is hope that the next one can actually stick the landing, or just roll your eyes at the sheer stupidity and soullessness being presented to you by corporate executives who only care about the contents of your wallet. Wow, I went off on quite a tangent there, but that officially marks the end of Isaac Reviews 2021. It's been quite a year for my channel. At times, it was a lot of fun doing these reviews. At times, it was a lot of pain. And at times, it was a lot of whatever. And I just want to thank all of you for sticking with me throughout this year, even when things were hard. This year's been tough on a lot of us, I'm sure, what with the pandemic still raging on, Disney and Nintendo doing some really nasty stuff for the sake of money, and the political realm of the United States becoming more and more divided than in recent memory. But at the very least, with the reopening of movie theaters, as well as streaming becoming way more prominent than in recent memory, we can get an escape from the crappy world we live in to just have a good time. Of course, this wasn't always the case, as this year provided a lot of duds that I'll go over in great detail when I release my top 10 worst films of 2021 video sometime in the first quarter of 2022, but we were still able to have some light shown in the darkness of both unfavorable movies and unfavorable current events, which honestly feels pretty nice. And I'm looking forward to doing this again pretty soon in Isaac Reviews 2022. Kicking off with the 355. Honestly, I feel like it could go either way. It can either be an enjoyable spy flick or a piece of SJW girl boss you go girl schlock. But I anxiously anticipate the reviews I'll be doing next year. From the movies that look amazing, to the movies that look abysmal, to the movies that probably won't be too special, but could still hold some merit of their own. I'm excited to see what I'll have in store for 2022, and I'm excited for what you'll have in store for Isaac Reviews 2022. Thanks again for sticking with me throughout this year, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!